I tried to draw this. I drew this years ago, and I had it for a while, looked at it the other day and couldn't remember what I wanted to do with it. But now I know, see, the timeline is very important, but because in our learning, if we go to church or something like that, we hear a bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, and we're unable to put them in a timeline. It's one complete narrative, starting with the creation, Adam and Eve, through the years, which is what I'm trying to do here in the history of the Jews, going according to the timeline until the arrival of our Lord Jesus Christ. So we have year zero. On one side is after the appearance of our Lord Jesus, and before that is before Christ, before. So the way it's counted is we start with 4500 BC, 4000 BC, 3500 BC, 3000 BC, 1000 BC, 500 until year zero. See, on the before Christ side, the years go down. And then from after Christ, AD, it goes up. First century, 0 to 100 is the first century. 100 to 200 is the second century. Sometimes, today we're living 2020 is the 21st century. It's confusing. So whenever, especially when we read history, we have to be able to pinpoint where in the timeline it is. And this is especially important in biblical archaeology. We say it's 701. 701 BC is what? Sennacherib and King Hezekiah. And before then, you have the kings Saul, David, and Solomon. And after that, after who succeeded King Hezekiah, his son Manasseh. And then from then on, you have the Babylonian exile, return from exile. So we talk about First Temple period, Second Temple period, pre-exilic, exilic, post-exilic. I'm going to do a more detailed account of it. So now I have it. So I've already bought the paper to do it. It's just there's only one line there. Eventually, I'll get to it. There's so many things to do. I have like 5-6 books open. I'm open at any one time, and I ask myself, why don't I concentrate on one? I said, there's the battlefront. There's so many fronts open. It's hard for me to just do one and then ignore the rest. Just as you talk about one, things are coming up. That's why I'm doing history of the Old Testament and then biblical archaeology, where it fits into the biblical timeline, and it fits. It's amazing. I've discovered a lot more people on YouTube that does incredible work. It's like, thank God for them. So today I'm going to continue with, after the story of Samson and Delilah, with Samuel. 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel. So Samuel and Eli are the last of the judges. Actually, it fits. We have a time of 325 years where judges appear to help take care of this, the attacks on the tribal league. At this time, after the tribes were given allotted land, there were just 12 tribes, loosely hanging together as what is also called tribal league. And there are priests and high priests, and the Ark of the Covenant, there was no Jerusalem at this time yet. So where was the Ark of the Covenant? Where they settled was at a place called Shiloh. That's where the high priests are at, and where sacrifices are at, and where the Ark of the Covenant is kept, Shiloh. Eventually, through time, when we have King Saul, King David, and King Solomon, with the preparation and eventual construction of the temple, then David wanted to bring that ark back to his capital in Jerusalem. I'll talk about how Jerusalem came to be the city of David. It was it was enemy territory, the Jebusites, and besides it was called Jebus. So this history is very fascinating. Yeah. So I have to talk about Samuel. Before Samuel, it was the priest Eli. Eli was the priest before Samuel was even born. So we hear in 1 Samuel chapter 1, the first few chapters of the life of Eli, the priest, who was the high priest who does all the sacrifices and all these cleanliness for worship at the tabernacle, really still at Shiloh. And there was this man called Elkanah. Elkanah was a very religious person. For some reason, they still have plural wives. So he had 2 wives. We don't know which wife is older than the other, but definitely the wife, possibly a first wife, Hannah, had no children. Usually, if you don't have any children, your husband is allowed to take a second wife or maid to have children with. So the other wife has a lot of children, but Hannah has none. But Hannah happens to be Elkanah's favorite wife for some reason. So each time they go to the tabernacle, really, to worship, Elkanah would give Hannah a huge portion, very generous with her, so that her offerings to tabernacle worship was bigger than the other wives for some reason. And the other wives is always taunting Hannah, that you don't have any children. And it's like anathema not to have children. If you're barren, it's not a good thing. You can be cast out if your husband doesn't like it. But for this reason, Elkanah prefers the childless Hannah. So what would she do? She would go to the temple and she would plead, she would cry, really be in anguish as she goes to the temple to pray. She asking God for a child, said, Lord, if you give me a son, I will dedicate him to you. He will serve you. And the high priest, Eli, looked at her and said, this strange woman, what the heck? She is like carrying on over there. Is she drunk? Hannah said, no, sir, I'm not drunk. I am pouring out my heart to the Lord. Please don't think I'm a wicked woman. I have been praying out of great anguish and sorrow. Then in that case, Eli said, may the God of Israel grant the request you ask of him. Thank you, sir, she said. So they would return home, and every year she would go up to the temple to do the same thing. And eventually, God granted her request. She had a son. And here in chapter 2, 1 Samuel chapter 2, we hear of Hannah's prayer of praise. Yeah. Throughout the Bible, we hear of songs of praise, and many of them were written by women also. In Exodus, we hear of the praise of Moses' sister Miriam. She praised God. And in Deborah's song of praise of the victory over the Philistines, the Sisera. We hear of Yael, how Yael killed Sisera. And here we hear of Hannah's praise too. My heart rejoices in the Lord. See. And what does he do? Hannah fulfilled her promise to God that Samuel, the little boy, would be the Lord's helper. He would assist Eli in the tabernacle. So she fulfilled her promise to God. And what of Eli's family? Eli had sons too, but they, according to the Bible, they were not. For some reason, even if we have pastors, their children don't always follow them. They're, in this case, we call them pastors' kids. They are not. It's not always. It's a blessing when your kids follow your example, but many families they don't. And this is what happens of the sons of Eli. They were not obedient servants, even though being sons of priests, being Levites, it's a birthright that you become priest too, because your family is from the tribe of Levi, so you become a priest because of your birthright. So they are priests, but they were rude. And it says here, in the case of an offering to God, it's chopped up. The priest does get the choicest part, and the rest is burnt. But you have to wait for a proper way. But Eli's sons is said to, before the offering is completely burnt, I mean, they would use their fork and start dipping, looking for the choicest bit. That shows how rapacious they were. It's just terrible. And Eli did not do anything, did not stop his sons. And for that reason, he too angered the Lord. And God said to him, I have promised that your branch of the tribe of Levi will always be my priest. I will honor only those who honor me. I despise those who despise me. I will put an end to your family, so it will no longer serve as my priest. All the members of your families will die before their time. And indeed, his sons died. But there are the Levitical family, so they would take over. But this family, Eli's family, his kids would die, and eventually Eli would lose the honor. And that's where we have Samuel. That's why we have to read the story, so we can set up the story of Samuel, how he became the next priest and judge for Israel. And 1st and 2nd Samuel is the account of Samuel's account. So we will continue the next time.